From WABE in Atlanta, this is Savory Stories, a show where we take a look at Atlanta's people through its cuisine and food history.
On this podcast, we trace Atlanta's food story from the past to the present, getting to know Atlanta's culinary creators and demystifying stereotypes about food.
I'm Akila McConnell, culinary historian and owner of Unexpected Atlanta Tours, the #1 rated Atlanta touring activity on TripAdvisor, and author of A Culinary History of Atlanta.
And I'm Chef Asita Reed, owner of Life Chef, where we help you live a life you love, and author of How to Feed a Kid, A Parent's Guide. Today, we are back talking more about barbecue, but this time, we're focusing on the sauces.
If you haven't listened to Barbecue Part 1, hit pause on this podcast, go back over there, listen to it, and then come back to us. Now, if you listened to our barbecue episode a while back, you'll remember that we talked about how barbecue originated with the Indigenous people using barbacoas, or wooden racks, and then evolved into the hand-dug pit barbecues by the enslaved African Americans in the South. Those were the OG barbecues, and today, we want to talk about some OG sauces used in the South.
People have big opinions on barbecue sauce. Should it be sweet, vinegary, peppery? The meat in any barbecue operation should be stellar on its own. It's the star of the show. The science and art of barbecue has a long heritage, and it doesn't involve a propane tank and chicken marinated in salad dressing. To accentuate the art form that is barbecue, the sauce has to elevate all of that smoky goodness without getting in the way of or overpowering the flavor of the meat. Like any condiment, barbecue sauce is an accessory, like earrings, a belt, or shoes. It's meant to accentuate and individualize the outfit. But with all that said, there's still some long-standing rules to barbecue sauce. So, Akila, take us back in time to where barbecue sauces first got into the picture.
So right at the beginning, from the Indigenous people and onward, people have been using barbecue sauces. One of the best sources for information on how the enslaved people cooked were a series of interviews and oral histories conducted in the 1920s with elderly people who had been enslaved. One of those interviews was of a formerly enslaved man named Wesley Jones, who was a pitmaster, and I would have loved to have met him. He describes in amazing detail the grueling work needed to barbecue for a huge celebration. So what Mr. Jones used to do was the night before a barbecue, he used to stay up all night cooking and basting the meats with a barbecue sauce made of vinegar, black and red pepper, salt, butter, a little sage, coriander, basil, onion, and garlic.
Ooh, that sounds legit. Any idea what was on the menu back then?
Yeah, so he used to cook goats, whole hogs, sheep, and a side of a cow. He used to wrap that soft rag or cotton on a long stick, and then all night long he was turning the meat, swabbing the meat with the sauce until it dripped into the fire. Those drippings changed into smoke, which then seasoned and smoked the meat.
What's really incredible about that testimony is that he emphasizes that barbecue was for celebration. It was highfalutin food. Politicians, lawyers, and other high-profile events. He also gave a really great skeleton for a barbecue sauce. Vinegar or some kind of acid, butter or a similar source of fat, and your preference of herbs and spices. All that right there makes a great base for a marinade, a basting sauce, and a slathering sauce.
Yeah, and historically, vinegar-based sauces were the first barbecue sauces. As far back as 1748, Swedish-Finnish botanist Peter Kalm observed enslaved Africans combining peppers with vinegar and salt, and this used to sit for a while and be used as a sauce for meats and fish. In Mrs. Hill's new cookbook, which was published here in 1867 in Atlanta, Mrs. Hill offers this sauce that her family served at antebellum barbecues. So here's the recipe, Asada. Melt a half pound of butter, stir it into a large tablespoonful of mustard powder, half a teaspoonful of red pepper, 1 teaspoonful of black pepper, salt to taste, and vinegar until the sauce has a strong acid taste. So, Asta, why is vinegar so frequently used in barbecue sauces?
Well, first of all, for ages, even up till today, vinegar is believed to help clean meat. So a lot of folks just start right there with cleaning their meat with vinegar. And then think about it. If you didn't have modern refrigeration, meat would spoil. So you're definitely going to be concerned about the cleanliness of your meat. But also the twang in vinegar is a flavor counterpoint to meat's richness. So when you think of some of the popular cuts for barbecue, they tend to have some fat for automatic basting. And the vinegar helps cut through that richness. Also, vinegar is a tenderizer, so it's used in the marinade process to kind of help break down the connective tissues that can make meat tough when it's cooking. And then finally, cooked low and slow, vinegar-based sauces combined with something sweet like sugar or honey concentrate over time, and then they lend a sweetness and a glaze to the meat.
So basically, vinegar is like a magic cure for barbecue, huh?
It's the secret in the sauce, that's for sure.
Now, you all have probably heard of many different types of barbecues and sauces. There's Eastern North Carolina style, which is vinegar-based. South Carolina style includes mustard. Alabama style is a white sauce, and so on. And many of these styles of barbecue sauce directly reflect the history of these communities. For example, South Carolina's mustard sauce is the product of a large German heritage found in South Carolina.
That is really interesting. So I'm curious, how did barbecue sauce become so ubiquitous? Because it's all over America. Every kid is familiarized with barbecue sauce and ranch.
Yeah, you're totally right. And actually, that has to do a lot with the commercialization of barbecue sauce. And that starts in 1876 with the introduction of Heinz ketchup. All of a sudden, chefs in the South started introducing ketchup into their barbecue sauces, creating kind of a sweeter tomato flavor profile.
Well, that makes sense. Ketchup checks some of the boxes in a good barbecue sauce. You've got your tomato base, your sweetness, your acidity. So I can see how it made its way into barbecue sauce as a base. But when we come back from the break, we'll talk about some of Atlanta's favorite sauces.
Historically, Atlantans didn't have a specific sauce like South Carolina, North Carolina, or Texas. And while I don't know the exact reason for this, my supposition is that it's because we're all in between all of these states and because we're really well connected by train. So people from these different regions brought all of these types of barbecue sauce to our city. That being said, we did play a really important role in barbecue sauce history because the very first documented commercial barbecue sauce company was based here in Atlanta.
Really?
It was. This was called Georgia Barbecue Sauce, and it received a patent in 1911 for their sauce. Advertisements called it, and I quote, the finest dressing known to culinary science.
Wow.
Now, that being said, nationally distributed sauces didn't really come up until the 1940s when Heinz realized that a whole lot of people really like barbecue sauces, and they started selling their own barbecue sauce. And this is when barbecue sauce really hits a national scale. And we're not just using it on barbecue, but we're using it with everything. I mean, my kids even dip their pretzels into barbecue sauce.
Let's do a rundown of boss sauces that listeners can pick up around town, along with some slabs of ribs or brisket. I'll kick off our list with a spot that will be joining the OG list soon. Twin brothers Justin and Jonathan Fox have been smoking up Texas-style barbecue here in Atlanta for over 17 years now. Fox Brothers Barbecue has become an Atlanta staple, and their DeKalb Avenue original location is sort of a barbecue mecca in this city. Well, yeah, judging on the parking lot and the traffic, definitely.
It's a haven.
It is.
And, I am always wary when I drive by there on a Saturday night because that it's just a line. It's a line.
You can bring their famous flavor home with their sweet and tangy sauce available at major retailers. In my house, we have a collection of barbecue sauces, and Fox Brothers is always in the mix because it's solid. This sauce makes a lovely glaze when basted on meats, and the vinegar is exactly what you want to stand up against the smoke, the fat, and the char. It's not too sweet because that's a pet peeve of mine, and the sauce has some herbaceousness to it that makes it a good finishing sauce on grilled meats as well.
If you're looking for something that's a little less traditional, because Fox Brothers is awesome, but very traditional style barbecue sauce, a little bit of a less traditional sauce is Ob Sauce. This is a small Black-owned business. He makes some really unique sauces, including a spicy peach barbecue sauce.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Woods Chapel in Summer Hill. We mentioned them in our first barbecue episode. Here you can get a variety of sauces that really speak to barbecue connoisseurs. Of course, they've got their traditional tomato-based sauce with the sweet, tangy notes that works as a baste and slather sauce, okay? You gotta have that. That's like base, right? But Woods Chapel also has a smoky all-purpose sauce. And that's more of a vinaigrette consistency that stands in for that mysterious squirt bottle your uncle always had on hand while he was grilling meat. Some folks may have just had water in that squirt bottle to control the fire, but the real pit masters know that the squirt bottle is an opportunity to impart flavor through herbs and vinegar while grilling. The last sauce I want to talk about over at Woods Chapel is a hog mop. True pit masters will appreciate this one, as the mop is the tool of choice for adding moisture and flavor during whole hog barbecue. The hog mop is vinegary and spicy with added heat, perfect for basting large cuts of meat over a long period of time. Here at Woods Chapel, not only do they smoke exclusively over wood, but they barbecue in smokers and a pit for whole hogs.
And you know that mop, we talked about how Mr. Wesley Jones, the enslaved pitmaster, he used to mop up his sauces too. So this is the way. This is the way.
Mop sauce and the spray. For those who are new to barbecue, those are two tools that will get you closer to being a pitmaster.
If you're worried about being a pitmaster, you can even order their barbecue for Thanksgiving or the holidays. Right, Asada?
Yes, so you can take the burden off you and pass it on over to Woods Chapel.
That's right. Do you have any other suggestions for us? Maybe some more recent pitmasters who have come up?
Oh, absolutely. Speaking of pitmasters, the acclaimed Rodney Scott opened his Atlanta restaurant in 2021. Famous for whole hog barbecue over live fire and coal pits. Rodney Scott originated in South Carolina with Rodney Scott Whole Hog Barbecue, and they sell several sauces and rubs, including an Alabama-inspired white barbecue sauce. And we've kind of spoken about the tomato and ketchup-based sauces and mentioned the Carolina mustard-based sauces. But let's take a moment to talk about the Alabama White. It's a mild sauce by comparison, and it's still tangy because it's based on a mayonnaise vinegar base instead of tomatoes or ketchup. But for all these sauces and rubs, you can visit the Rodney Scott merch shop and pick up a gift box with a little bit of everything for the barbecue lover in your life, or have those goodies delivered right to your door. We'll post the link in the show notes.
You know, I don't think I knew about that merch box. That sounds like the perfect present for my husband, who is a barbecue sauce connoisseur.
Well, you just put it on air now, so you're going to have to come up with something else.
I'll tell him not to listen to this podcast episode. So tell us about Brian Furman, because he is just hot right now in the barbecue world.
So you may remember Brian Furman from Bees Crackling. There have been two in Atlanta, and they've both burnt down. But you can't keep a good pitmaster down, and Brian Furman is coming back. We're literally holding our breath and waiting for the any day now opening of his new location here in Atlanta. Our WABE sibling, Maximilian Hines, recently interviewed Furman on his podcast, Just Sat. So be sure to take a listen to that candid conversation to learn more about the fire and smoke that is the burning passion behind Brian Furman's new venture.
Yeah, and that's a great podcast to listen to as well. I highly recommend it.
Shout out to Max.
Yeah, so we know that Atlanta has plenty of barbecue joints and plenty of barbecue sauces to brag about. So if we didn't hit your favorite, hit us up on Instagram to let us know what we missed in this episode. And we will be back in a few weeks with a new podcast episode.
Savory Stories is produced by the divine Crystal Devone, with additional production and editing from the stylish Scotty Crow. The series was created by the brilliant Summer Evans and premiered on City Lights with the one and only Lois Rices. For more info, visit wabe.org/Savory Stories.
WABE.